All right, so you know how everyone's going crazy for that new bakery downtown? The one with the sourdough everyone's raving about?
I think I know the one.
Well, picture this. They show up one morning, ready to bake, and bam, their website's been hijacked, orders are gone, contact forms useless, just a nasty message demanding ransom.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Their online storefront is literally held hostage.
Exactly. Makes you think, right? In today's world, a website crashing can be just as bad as locking your physical doors.
It's a harsh reality. Many business owners, they don't really get it until it happens to them, which is unfortunate. Cyber attacks are through the roof these days, and those smaller businesses, like our bakery, they're prime targets. They might not have the same intense security as, like, a huge corporation, which leaves them vulnerable. That's why we're doing a deep dive into top strategies to boost your website security.
Okay, so this article from Now Technology Systems, they come right out and say website security is non-negotiable now. Seems like common sense, but why is it so critical, especially for businesses like that bakery?
Think of it this way. Your website is your digital storefront. You'd invest in security cameras and strong locks for your physical shop, right?
Yeah, of course.
Same goes for your online presence. A security breach, it isn't just about maybe losing data. It can mean losing income, your good name, and losing your customers' trust too. People are going to think twice about ordering their sourdough online if they're worried about their card details getting swiped right.
Right, it's like that awful feeling when you realize you left the back door unlocked. So Now Technology Systems lays out these 10 strategies, and they start with the essentials. The first one, perform regular updates. I'll admit, I sometimes ignore those update notifications. What's the big deal if I skip a few?
Well, those updates aren't just for fancy new features. They often fix vulnerabilities, cracks in your shop's walls, so to speak. Ignore those for too long, and you're asking for trouble. Every time you update, you're reinforcing those walls, making your site a way tougher target.
Okay, so regular updates, check. It's like making sure a bakery has a strong lock on the door. What's the next line of defense? They mention comprehensive security plugins.
Absolutely, and this is huge if you're using a platform like WordPress, which is super popular, but also a big target because of that. Think of security plugins like a top-notch alarm system for your bakery. The article mentions some big names: WordFence, Securi, iThemes. They all give you that extra layer of protection, scanning for malware, keeping an eye out for shady activity.
So it's like those security cameras we mentioned, scanning 24/7 for anything fishy. Do you have a favorite out of those plugins?
It depends on the website and how it's built, but they all have their strengths. What matters is you do your research, find one that fits your setup, and keep it updated. An outdated security plugin is about as helpful as a guard dog that's asleep on the job.
That makes sense. And it reminds me, I've been meaning to ask you about those little padlock icons in the address bar. Now, Technology Systems mentions them too. Something about implement HTTPS. What's the deal with that?
You're talking about one of the most obvious signs of a secure website. But it's much more than just a nice icon. That padlock means the site's using HTTPS Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure. Basically, it encrypts the data that travels between the website and the visitor's browser.
So it's like a secure tunnel for all those transactions, all that sensitive information, no prying eyes allowed.
Exactly. Someone tries to intercept that data. Without the encryption key, it just looks like gibberish. Imagine our bakery owner taking orders online, processing payments. HTTPS is vital for keeping that customer data safe. Plus, Google loves it. Websites with HTTPS, they often get a little SEO boost, which is a nice bonus.
So it's a win-win, better security, and maybe better visibility on search engines. Speaking of things that are good for business, Now Technology Systems talks about regular backups. I know I should be better about this, but it always slips my mind. Why are backups so important?
Because even with the tightest security, there's always some risk. A backup is like insurance for your website. Worst case scenario, your site gets hacked, data's gone. Having a recent backup means you can restore everything way faster, minimizing downtime.
So regularly backing up all the website files, images, content, everything.
Exactly. And don't forget your databases. That's where all your valuable customer info is stored.
Got it. Okay, so we've got updates, plugins, HTTPS, and backups. That's a lot. Any tips for people who might be feeling overwhelmed?
Don't panic. You don't need to be a cybersecurity expert overnight. Start with these basic strategies one by one. And the good news is you can automate a lot of it. Many hosting providers have automatic backups, and tons of plugins can handle updates. Work smarter, not harder.
Work smarter, not harder. I love that. That should be our motto. Now let's talk about another strategy. Now, Technology Systems emphasizes one that seems obvious but is clearly still a big deal. Strengthen passwords.
Cybersecurity 101, but it's shocking how many people still use weak or easy-to-guess passwords.
Let's be real. We've all used password 123 or our pet's name at some point. So how do we break those habits and create truly secure passwords?
Think longer phrases, mix of upper and lowercase, numbers and symbols, the more random the better. And please, don't use the same password for multiple accounts. That's like using the same key for your house, your car, and your office.
Okay, that analogy is terrifyingly clear. Speaking of extra layers of security, the article mentions two-factor authentication. I've seen it around, but not sure how it works or if it's really necessary.
It's definitely worth the extra minute or two. Think of it like this. You're at a high-security building. Even with your key card, you still have to go through security, maybe show some ID. Two-factor authentication is like that extra layer. Even if someone gets your password, they can't get in without that second factor, usually a code sent to your phone.
So it's like having a digital bodyguard, reassuring, especially when we're talking about online banking or customer data, like with our bakery.
Exactly. And many websites and online services now offer it as standard. It's usually as easy as ticking a box in your settings.
Okay, we're making progress. We've covered 5 strategies. Ready for the next 5.
Let's do it. We've got a lot more to cover, and it gets even more interesting from here.
All right then, let's get technical. Now, Technology Systems talks about SQL injections. I'll admit, that sounds a little intimidating. Can you break it down?
Imagine someone sneaking a malicious code into your website's contact form. That's basically what a SQL injection is. If your website isn't protected, this code exploits vulnerabilities in your database, and hackers could get access to everything.
Ouch, so it's like someone's sneaking in through a backdoor you didn't even know existed. How do we avoid becoming victims of this?
It comes down to secure coding from the start. The article mentions some technical stuff like parameterized queries and ORM frameworks. While those are important for developers, the takeaway is to make sure your developers are making security a top priority.
So find developers you trust, talk to them about your security expectations, maybe learn a few of those technical terms so you're both on the same page.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, and when it comes to website security, understanding the basics can make all the difference.
I like it. Knowledge is power. Speaking of knowledge, let's move on. Monitor your website's security. That sounds like a full-time job. Are we supposed to be glued to our screens 24/7?
No way. There are great tools out there that do the heavy lifting. The article mentions Google Search Console that can alert you to security issues. Then there's Pingdom, which tracks your website's uptime so you know if it goes offline. And for WordPress, Jetpack has a whole bunch of security features, including monitoring.
So it's like having a digital security team on call, letting us know if something's up.
Exactly. Think of it like a home security system. You don't have to watch the cameras 24/7, but you get an alert if there's weird activity. These tools are the same way.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, strategy number 8. Educate your team. This one seems straightforward. You can't have a secure website if your team isn't on board.
Exactly. You can have the best security system in the world, but human error is often the weakest link. One wrong click on a phishing email, and the whole system could be compromised. Having a team that knows how to spot phishing scams, protect sensitive info, and report anything suspicious is key.
So we're talking regular training sessions, maybe even those fake phishing attacks to really test their skills.
Exactly. Make it fun, make it relevant, but most importantly, make it part of your company culture.
A chain is only as strong as its weakest link, right? Okay. A few more to go. Now, Technology Systems recommends implement web application firewalls, or WAFs. What are those?
Think of a WAF as a shield in front of your website, blocking malicious traffic before it gets to your server. It's like a gatekeeper analyzing requests and filtering out anything suspicious.
So a bouncer for your website, only letting the good traffic in.
Exactly. And many web hosting providers include WAFs in their packages, making it easier than ever to add this crucial layer of security.
Another win for simplicity. Okay, last but not least, ensuring compliance with Australian regulations. We don't want to get lost in the legal jargon, but what's the main takeaway here for our listeners, especially those running businesses in Australia?
It boils down to this. Australia has laws to protect online data and privacy. As a business owner, you need to know those rules and follow them, not just to avoid legal trouble, but to build trust with your customers.
Because nothing says trustworthy like a business that's clearly making data security a priority. It's good for business and good for peace of mind.
Exactly. And these regulations change, so it's essential to stay updated and adapt your security accordingly.
Staying informed is key. Now, before we move on, I want to touch on something the article brings up towards the end, getting professional help with website security. They specifically mention now technology systems.
It makes sense, right? We've covered a lot, and it can be a lot to handle, especially for people who aren't tech savvy. Even with all these strategies, knowing where to start or what tools to use is tough.
It's like trying to bake sourdough for the first time. It seems easy until you try it. Sometimes, having an expert guide makes all the difference.
Exactly. And that's where expert help is invaluable. Think of it like hiring a contractor for home renovations. You could DIY, but sometimes it's best to bring in a professional, especially when it's something as important as your website's security.
You wouldn't want to be fixing a leaky roof in a storm. It's all about prevention and having the right people on your side.
Exactly. Just like any other business investment, it's about finding the right security solutions for your needs and your budget.
Speaking of investments, let's talk about the cost of a security breach. It's not just about recovering lost data. There are ripple effects, right?
Absolutely. We often focus on the initial financial hit, stolen money, recovery costs, but there are hidden costs that can be even bigger in the long run.
Like what? What are some of the less obvious ways a security breach can hurt a business, especially one that relies on online trust, like our bakery?
Let's say our bakery's website gets hacked. Besides rebuilding the site and potentially losing customer data, they're losing money every minute they're offline.
Yeah.
Customers can't order, they go to competitors, that's all lost income.
And that's not even considering the damage to their reputation. Customers might think twice about ordering if they're worried about their payment info being stolen.
Exactly. And then there are legal issues. Depending on what data was compromised, there could be huge fines for not complying with data protection laws.
Okay, now I'm getting that pit in my stomach feeling, but this is important for everyone to hear. It shows how crucial it is to take website security seriously, not as an afterthought, but as a core part of doing business today.
Absolutely. While no system is foolproof, by implementing those essential security measures, staying informed and being proactive, you're seriously reducing your risk.
Right, it's about minimizing risk, not eliminating it, because that's just not realistic in the tech world. And that brings me to something else from the article, communication and transparency, especially if a breach does occur.
You're right. If a breach happens, how you handle it is crucial. If our bakery's website is compromised, imagine how much worse it would be if they tried to hide it.
Right, like trying to cover up a crack in your storefront instead of fixing it. It'll just keep getting worse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Be upfront with customers, explain what happened, how it happened, and what you're doing to fix it. And tell them what you're doing to prevent it from happening again.
It's about rebuilding trust, showing them you're serious about protecting their data, even when things go wrong.
Exactly. That transparency can go a long way in minimizing damage to your reputation, which, as we said, can be more costly than the financial impact.
Okay, we've talked about the technical stuff, the human element, but what about the psychological impact of cybersecurity? It's a lot to think about, especially for small business owners who already have so much on their plate.
It absolutely can be. Cybersecurity isn't just firewalls and passwords. It's about managing risk, and risk always involves uncertainty. It's natural to feel overwhelmed or anxious about a potential breach, especially when your livelihood's at stake.
It's like that feeling of, did I lock the door? Did I set the alarm? That fear that something could go wrong.
Exactly. And with cybersecurity, that something can feel huge and scary. But here's the thing. We can't let fear paralyze us. We take precautions in real life to stay safe. We lock our doors. We look both ways before crossing the street. We need to do the same online.
And part of that is finding ways to manage that anxiety, to feel empowered.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one way to do that is through knowledge. The more you know about the threats and how to deal with them, the less scary it becomes. It's like visiting a new city. Once you have a map, know the safe areas, you feel better exploring.
That's a great analogy. Knowledge really is power when it comes to cybersecurity.
It is. And just like exploring a new city, it's about balancing caution with enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
You wouldn't stay locked in your hotel room the whole trip because you're scared.
Yeah. No way. It's about enjoying the benefits of being online, the convenience, the connection, without letting fear control everything.
Exactly. And part of that is accepting that there will always be risks, online and offline. We can't get rid of risk completely, but we can minimize it, manage it, and have a plan for when things don't go right.
That's such a good point. It's about resilience, knowing that even if there's a breach, you can bounce back.
Absolutely. Cybersecurity isn't an impossible obstacle. It's a process of learning and adapting. as the digital world changes.
I love that. It's about embracing the challenge, asking for help when you need it, and celebrating the small wins along the way.
Speaking of celebrating wins, we're about to get into some really interesting stuff. AI and its impact on website security. It's a game changer.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were getting deep into those 10 strategies from Now Technology Systems. It's a lot to take in, but it's so important now that our digital lives are so connected to our businesses.
Absolutely. And it's more than just knowing the strategies. It's about really understanding why each one matters, how they all work together. Once you get that, it becomes less of a checklist and more like a way of thinking about security that just becomes natural.
I like a security mindset. It's like building any good habit, you know, backing up your data, thinking twice before clicking a suspicious link. It becomes part of your routine.
Exactly. Like any habit, it takes effort at first, but then it just clicks. You don't need to be a cybersecurity whiz overnight. Those small steps make a huge difference over time.
Speaking of small steps, if you're a business owner, like our baker, where do you even start? The article mentions getting professional help, even calling out Now Technology Systems specifically.
It makes sense. Imagine our baker trying to learn all the cybersecurity stuff on top of running their business, baking, managing people. Sometimes the smartest move is admitting you need help and finding experts to guide you, create solutions just for you, and give you that peace of mind.
It's like when you call an electrician for your house. You don't mess with wiring if you don't know what you're doing. You call a pro.
Exactly. And like any other service, do your research, ask around, and find a cybersecurity team you trust, just like you would with an accountant or lawyer.
Okay, so we've talked about prevention, but what about when, despite our best efforts, things go wrong? What if, even with security measures, a website gets hacked? What then?
That's where damage control comes in.
Yeah.
Transparency is key. If our bakery site was hacked, it would be so much worse if they tried to hide it.
Right, it's like covering up a crack in your storefront instead of fixing it properly. It's just going to get worse.
Exactly. Tell your customers what happened, and how you're fixing it. And just as importantly, tell them what you're doing to stop it from happening again.
It's about showing them that you take their data seriously, even when things go wrong, and that you're working to rebuild their trust.
Exactly. Being open like that can really help minimize damage to your reputation, which we've already said can be even more costly than the actual financial hit.
So we've covered the tech stuff, the human element, but what about the psychology of cybersecurity? It can be a lot to deal with, especially for small business owners who are already juggling so much.
No doubt about it. Cybersecurity isn't just about firewalls and passwords. It's about managing risk. And there's always going to be some uncertainty with that. It's completely normal to feel overwhelmed or anxious about a potential breach, especially when it's your livelihood on the line.
It's that feeling of, did I remember to? Like, did I lock the door? Did I set the alarm? It's that nagging fear that something bad could happen.
Exactly. And in cybersecurity, that something can feel huge and terrifying. But here's the key. Don't let fear stop you from doing anything. Think about it.
Yeah.
You take precautions in real life to stay safe, right? Locking your doors, looking both ways before crossing the street. You've got to do the same online.
And part of that is finding ways to manage the anxiety, to feel more in control.
Absolutely. And one of the best ways to do that is through knowledge. The more you know about potential threats and how to handle them, the less scary it all seems. It's like when you travel to a new city.
Yeah.
If you have a map, you know the safe areas, you feel more confident exploring.
That is a great analogy. Knowledge really is power, especially with all this.
It really is. And like with exploring a new city, it's about finding that balance between being cautious and enjoying the experience. You wouldn't stay locked up in your hotel room the whole trip because you're scared.
No way. The point of traveling is to get out there. So it's about enjoying the good stuff, about being online, the convenience, connecting with people without letting fear control you.
Exactly. Part of it is just accepting there will always be risks, both online and in the real world. We can't eliminate risk completely, but we can minimize it, manage it, and have a plan for when things go sideways.
It's about being able to bounce back even if there's a problem. It's about resilience.
That's it. Cybersecurity isn't this impossible thing to overcome. It's an ongoing process. It's about learning, adapting, changing as the digital world changes.
That's a great way to put it. It's a process, and it's okay to need help. And it's about celebrating those small wins along the way.
Speaking of wins, we're about to get into something really cool. AI and its impact on website security. It's a complete game changer.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm already feeling more confident about my online security, and now we're getting into AI and website security. This is where it feels like we're stepping into the future.
It really is like something out of a movie. AI is changing everything about website security for better and potentially for worse.
Okay, so let's break that down. How is AI making website security better right now?
Imagine our bakery again. But this time, instead of just a few people watching for suspicious stuff, there are thousands, all powered by AI, working constantly in the background. That's what these AI security solutions can do. They go through mountains of data in real time, spotting patterns and catching threats that would take a person forever to find.
So it's like having this super-powered security team always on patrol, looking for anything out of place. What kinds of things can these AI systems actually catch?
They're amazing at noticing anomalies. Think unusual login attempts, files being changed suspiciously, traffic patterns that could mean a DDoS attack, things that even a really careful person might miss.
So they're not just reacting faster, they're actually predicting and stopping these attacks before they even happen.
Exactly. And that's a total game changer, especially since cyber attacks are getting more and more advanced and harder to detect these days.
It's amazing, but kind of scary at the same time.
Yep.
You mentioned AI could also make things worse. What did you mean?
Well, just like the good guys are using AI to improve defenses, the bad guys are using it too, unfortunately. They're using AI to make their attacks even stronger and harder to spot.
So it's like an arms race, with both sides using increasingly powerful AI to try and outsmart each other.
Exactly. It's a constant back and forth, and as AI keeps getting better, faster, it's only going to get more intense.
So where does that leave businesses and regular people just trying to stay safe online? It can feel impossible to keep up with all this.
I get that, but don't give in to that feeling. Remember, knowledge is power. Stay informed, learn about the threats, and understand the role of AI. That's key.
So what does that look like practically? How can we even try to keep up with these changes in AI and security?
Start by finding good sources of information. Industry magazines, security blogs, organizations doing research on this stuff. Don't be afraid to check them out, even if they sound a bit technical at first.
And you don't have to become an expert on all this overnight. Start with the areas that matter most to you. Whether it's your business or your own online life, you can build up your knowledge over time.
Exactly. And don't forget about talking to other people in your field. Go to industry events, join some forums online. It's a great way to share knowledge, learn from each other, and stay ahead of the game.
Like they say, two heads are better than one. We can do more together, especially in this fast-changing world.
Couldn't agree more. That sense of looking out for each other is so important now.
Okay, we've talked about the technical side, the human factor, the changing threats, but there's a bigger question here. In a world where our data is so valuable, where everything we do online is being tracked, what does it even mean to be free and in control online?
Wow, that's a deep one. There's no simple answer to that.
I know, right? It makes you think about the choices we make online, what information we share, the trail we leave behind. It's about deciding what we want our relationship with technology to look like, both as individuals and as a society.
And it's a conversation we desperately need to have, openly and honestly. The way we answer that question will shape not just the future of the internet, but the future of our world.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive. It's always great exploring these important topics with you.
Likewise. Until next time.
To everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of website security. We hope you learned something valuable and feel ready to take charge of your online safety. Remember, knowledge is power. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and stay curious.